Three, two, one. Today's episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. Is there something stopping you from taking that next step in your life? Is there something blocking you from being happy? Well, then you should check out BetterHelp.com. BetterHelp is an online service that will connect you with one of their professional personal counselors in under 48 hours. Their counselors are specialized in many areas, including stress, anxiety, anger, and depression. You'll be able to schedule weekly video or phone sessions with your counselor in a safe and private online environment. BetterHelp is also more affordable and a more convenient option than the traditional in-person counseling. We here at the 2-on-1 podcast want you to start living a happier life today. As a listener, you'll get 10% off your first month by visiting our sponsor at betterhelp.com/listener. Join over 1 million people who have taken charge of their mental health. Again, that's BetterHelp, BetterHelp.com/listener. Adam.
My faith in the Montreal Canadiens has been restored.
Good.
I feel good. And I feel like the person we have on today returning, it's Patrick Tallon. Patrick, are you of the same mind right now, my friend?
100%. Could not be happier with how that went.
Kent Hughes. We are recording this not long after Kent Hughes' introduction to the media, along with Jeff Gordon and Jeff Moulton. Jeff's everywhere. Hughes in the middle with some fun stuff. The Triforce, power, wisdom, courage. Distribute it how you want. I think, honestly, Jeff Gordon is very courageous to continue to face the French media, who clearly do not like him. Anyway, yeah, big news of the week. The Canadiens have hired Kent Hughes as GM. Interesting stuff. It seemed like he was their guy. And from the start, there was word about Hughes in that. But before we sort of go too deep on this, gentlemen, I'm going to start with Patrick here. Just sort of, if you want to give me a sense or two about just how you would describe that press conference we just watched.
Well, I said it last time with the Jeff Gordon press conference that it was a breath of fresh air, and everything you would have wanted to hear out of Jeff Gordon we heard. And then I think today it was everything I wanted to hear from Kent Hughes, and then even more. Every time he said something, I was impressed. He was almost, I don't want to say hostile, because that's definitely not the right word, but kind of combative in a way, where he jumped in there where questions were sort of not slights against him, but just awkwardly worded questions. And even when they weren't even directed at him, he would say, okay, I'm going to jump in here, I'm going to chime in and actually comment on that. And I thought it was really good. I thought he seems like a no BS kind of guy, but he wasn't hostile. He wasn't, I tweeted about Arpon Basu, how he doesn't have to have a yelling match with Bergevin anymore. He sets the record straight, very straight shooter, but he's also someone you can tell is pretty open-minded. Could not be happier with anything he said. And I don't want to keep saying I'll wait and see, but I'm going to say here, I'm going to wait and see at the deadline. I'm going to wait and see till they release a statement, what the next moves are going to be. But everything I've seen so far, I've been very impressed. And I think to describe it, it was just everything people have wanted to hear that we didn't hear in the last 9.5 years under Marc Bergevin.
Is it fair to say you kind of said it, but from what I was reading on Twitter, I didn't get to watch it, but it seemed like a complete 180 of what we expected from Marc Bergevin, not necessarily from what he said, but Bergevin and Muzzin seemed very chummy. They're clearly friends outside of the office. And I don't know, obviously I don't think we're there yet, but is this a very different aura than when Marc Bergevin came in?
I think so. And I think like Therrien and Bergevin were really good friends. Bergevin and Sylvain Lefebvre were good friends. And there was always that, like you said, that chummy relationship between Bergevin and Molson. You don't get the sense of Jeff Gordon. And like one of the first things he said, he made a joke about it, was no offense to Kent, but he's not my best friend. And they don't communicate that much as people thought. And that's where I liked that Hughes kind of stepped in and said, like, I'm not his best friend. And that's not why I was hired. I'm hired because, I want to work with this team. I'm excited about this team and all that stuff. I don't get the sense, like, it's two business hockey men who want to make the best team available, who are going to continue to surround themselves with people who who share the same vision, but also disagree with them, which is something you never got the sense with Bergevin. He hired his buddies. And I remember, Adam, you had said, Bergevin never cited analytics. And when he did, you said it was, they use it like a spare tire almost, or a spare screwdriver.
Yeah, spare screwdriver.
And it's something they might think of. But yeah, I don't get the sense that these guys are best friends, or it's about, Tarion cited, I think in 2014, the importance of when you're down in the foxhole, you want to have a foxhole buddy with you. It's talking about Tarion. If you want loyalty, buy a dog, all these sort of recycled cliches. You didn't get that. You got just straight shooting. This is the plan. This is what we want for the team. And I think it's good that they're not buddy. And I also think it's good that they're going to continue to, there's still an assistant GM position that needs to be filled, and director of scouting that needs to be filled as well. So I think that for the first time in, I guess, as long as I've been a fan, at least, they are hiring the most competent individuals to run this hockey team. And it's, couldn't be happier.
Can I ask a question before you go, Adam? I'm curious from both of your standpoints. Like, after listening to that press conference, what's the expectation of Gordon's role and Kent Hughes' role, in terms of Kent Hughes has a history clearly of negotiating contracts. That's there. But making trades and maybe the other day-to-day hockey operation stuff isn't necessarily his forte yet. Is the expectation is that Jeff Gordon is going to do that type of work, and Kent Hughes is going to not stick to, but for now, look at the business side of it?
Mind if I jump in first, Patrick? I think it was a big theme I saw of the press conference was a lot of mention of sort of brain trust, of being open-minded. So I think no matter what the decisions are, even if it's final say from Gordon or if it's Hughes on the other side, it's going to be an open communication with probably those two, whoever the AGM is going to be. There's always been this sort of sense from the media that I think Friedman said that the axis of power right now is on Jeff Gordon. If you want a good negotiator doing a trade, I think Hughes has got the proper thing, but it feels like even that kind of decision with the trade, I'm sure if they're talking to the Panthers about Ben Sherratt, I feel like they're both going to have a say in it. Kind of like when we saw in the Leafs All or Nothing series, it was Dubas on the phone, and who knows which one of them ended up doing it, but Shanahan was there to give the thumbs up. Maybe Hughes is there and Gordon's at the same time being like a sort of up, down, you're going one way, you're going the other way. But what do you think, Pat? Patrick? Shouldn't call you Pat, sorry.
That's okay. I think in a way, he doesn't remind me of Eric Tulsky, but the consultant in Carolina, he's the assistant GM, and he works not exclusively, but his main focus is analytics and looking at play drivers and presenting analytics to Carolina's GM. So I think he will serve not just as the figurehead to speak to the media, but I also think Montreal could have made it a little bit clearer initially from their first press conference, because they got so many questions about it as to what the roles are. As president, which is Gordon's role, he will be handling the day-to-day, a lot of the decision-making, but he's also going to have this GM who's a figurehead, but that figurehead is also going to emphasize analytics and player development and scouting and contracts. So I think more of a consultant who handles the negotiations, but I also think they're going to collaborate on a lot of the deals that are being made, whether it's at the draft table, whether it's making trades. I don't think it's exclusively one or the other. I just think, I think for the most part, they'll work together. And I think I've wanted someone who has brought up analytics and who really sees the value in analytics. And like he said today, offensive minded, fast team. I think they'll work together, and his own sort of department of analytics and contract negotiation will be his strong suit.
Quickly, just because Daniel, I feel like we left you in the weeds a bit here. What do you think of the press conference and your initial sort of thoughts here on Kent Hughes?
For me, I think it's his long-term vision and what he said when he said he doesn't care what the word is, retool, revise, rebuild, or anything. He just wants to build a team. Mm-hmm. And for me, I think that's super important, because I think that you look past last year, that's in the past. You don't focus solely on what's happening this year. And you know that right now there is a plan in place where he's going to be patient, but he's going to still be aggressive with moves. That you're not going to be a Dave Nonis and try to just stay where you are, but at the same time, you're not going to pull the trigger like a Paul Holmgren every time. So that's what I liked. That's what I liked about it. It was very reassuring for me. And it struck the balance for me really well.
There was the quote basically, Daniel, speaking of here, is to paraphrase, he wants to build a team that can win long term, not just next year. He doesn't care if it's if it's reset, retool, rebuild, which I thought was smart, because I feel like nowadays, if you say rebuild, it's like, all right, 3-4 years, let's go. And then maybe you have Pierre Dorian saying, we're good now. And then the Sens aren't.
Or is there Mike Babcock, 5 years of pain?
It's going to be bad. And then,
and it's still bad.
Going back, I wanted to connect Patrick and Alex's points there. You can see a big difference I noticed when you look at Hughes compared to Bergevin is, again, yes, Patrick sort of mentioned it. Hughes wasn't afraid to push back on the media, but it was nowhere near as aggressive as Bergevin would be. Like, Bergevin would take it personally when Hughes is very much, I think there was one question, I can't remember exact specifics, but I think it was to do with the best friend thing. That narrative was very much pushed. And Hughes said, listen, I don't think I'd be here if I wasn't the best candidate. And he went back, he said to the reporter, I don't think that's what you're trying to say. So he was being, I think he was being respectful. Yeah. So I like him. I like him a lot. Some other stuff kind of looking here. Okay. I really thought unity when I was watching this, because first off, by the way, I just wanted to say, like, there's a certain, you can tell this is a new era, and I would not be surprised if, for those of you who have not seen it, the visual of the press conference was so cool. They do it on the ice of the Bell Center, and in the background, the Jumbotron is brought down as the background. If that's Chantal doing her job, she's been doing it great lately, and I bet it was her. And then there you go. You see Molson, you see Gordon, and you see Hughes in there together. And I thought there was no better example than Jeff Molson was asked a question in French. I don't know who the reporter was, but so Molson responds to the question asking if he can say it in English, or sorry, if he could answer the question in English so Jeff Gordon can contribute. Apparently the reporter said no, and Jeff Molson said, he's like, I'm going to speak in English anyway. I love that so much. I cheered. I texted Patrick this. I'm like, I cheered out loud when that happened. That was, go team. Love to see it.
Yeah, you bring up unity, like you bring up that idea of unity, and it's very different than what was under Marc Bergevin. I want to call it a modern approach, and you guys tell me if I'm wrong, but it just feels the direction of how they're moving this team on the ice, but more importantly, I think to start off the ice is more of a modern approach than what it was under Bergevin, which just seemed like, okay, I like we were saying, I'm going to hire my friends and then we'll just go from there. And there's no plan. It's just how it goes. It seems like right now there is a plan with the best available candidates, and this is what we're going to do. And things will change, but it will fit within the plan. It didn't seem like it was like that before.
I'd like to mention there that in terms of unity, it's the right type of unity, because I remember in our last episode, Patrick, you've mentioned about Marc Bergevin making lateral moves, and eventually when that management team was gone, we looked at, so look at the certain players they did draft that they did really well in, and then they kind of just left it there. And we just saw a lot of movement with the same role players, but the same franchise guys were there, and there wasn't really that idea of what are we going to do for the next big move?
Yeah, I think, there was that analogy where Bergevin had a leaking ceiling and a bunch of buckets, and instead of getting new buckets, he just moved them around, kind of solving a problem, creating another, and I think to touch on the modern day comment, everything about them, there's a lot more transparency. For example, like the first practice before the Arizona game, maybe it was the Dallas game, one of those two, but Chantal McAvoy listed all the injuries, with extensive detail, everything that was going on. That way they didn't have to wait to have a press conference to ask Ducharme, what's the status on these guys? What's the status on these guys? They're a lot more updated. Even last night, Montreal tweeted a Jordan Harris goal, and everyone's like, they never would have tweeted this 2 months ago. Is that a sign? Because obviously Hughes has the connection to Harris. Maybe they're going to start posting more about that stuff. Everything kind of seems to be, like you said, the new era. And I always think back to the Leafs when they sort of announced their their rebuild, the Shanna plan, and he said there's going to be a lot of pain. Obviously, Montreal didn't go that deep into their comments about a rebuild, but they are being transparent with how they want the team culture to be, obviously an emphasis on character. But I found Bergevin was so limited in his assessment of players, just talking about character, but he never cited skill or having a fast team or having an analytics department. It was very just, okay, this guy, Andrew Shaw, is a winner, for example. We need to get Andrew Shaw because he's a gritty winner. And there's truth to that, but you also need, the Canes and the Taves who will get you there as well. And he seemed to always focus on the Shaws and the Bickles of the world. But, Kent Hughes talking about all this stuff about a team being fast and analytics. He mentioned analytics like 7 times today. And the importance of that, we never heard that. So, and just everything, the way the outlook looks so far, I'm very, very excited.
When I listened, sorry, Adam. When I listened to Marc Bergevin, it felt like I was listening to a French version of Mike Babcock sometimes.
Not far off. I think fair enough. Berge had a bit more personality and style.
Yeah, yes, he had a bit more personality, but like the way they talked about players, it's like, what does this have anything to do with playing hockey?
Can you imagine Mike Babcock hugging his players?
No, I can't. I can't, especially not in Toronto.
So you mentioned the Jordan Harris stuff. This is a tweet from John Liu that came out a couple of days ago. Fun fact about Habs Kent Hughes, his ties to Northeastern University in Boston. This year's team, his sons Riley and the Rangers. His sons Riley, a New York Rangers prospect drafted by Jeff Gordon in 2018. Jack, who is eligible this year, as well as Northeastern Habs D. Prospects Jaden Struble and Jordan Harris, who famously, Alex made a good tweet about this. Earlier in the year, Bergevin said, well, if it happens, it happens. If he goes to New York, whatever. Because if you don't know this, he can be a free agent at the end of the year because don't we love the NCAA loophole? No, we don't. We kind of hate it.
We hate it.
I wanted to mention about Jeff Gordon. He seems like he's got a good sense of humor, a friendly guy. But he just keeps the thing of, no offense, Kent's not my best friend. I wouldn't want any of my best friends running this team. I wouldn't do that to you. And they're just not giving him a chance, the French media. I feel bad for him. I love Jeff Gordon.
I was surprised that there weren't too many comments, actually. I was expecting questions about Hughes' ability to speak French and communicate, because you can tell there's a little bit of an Anglo accent, which all 4 of us, it doesn't really matter, obviously, but to some people it really does. And I was expecting at least 1 or 2 questions about that, and I'm surprised that there weren't. A lot of it was, I found the bulk of the questions were about his personal relationship, but the questions about, did anyone ask for a trade, which obviously he's not going to answer that. He's not going to say, yeah, these players, but the questions about the analytics department, how he wants to build a team, what's important to him, I thought were really good. And I'm surprised that the media took it pretty well.
You know what? When I was listening to it, I think the first few sentences, like obviously you just kind of, you tune in to be like, all right, like I could just sense that there were certain reporters just kind of going. And then when he went, I don't know if this is me being crazy, but when he spoke English, it was, I don't know. It just, you could tell that he's not been like in Quebec. I could sound really crazy there. I don't know how to study that stuff, but when he spoke English, I was like, I feel like somebody's going to pick this up. And I was expecting the kind of question of like, Kent Hughes, eh? That's not a very French name.
Yeah.
Well, hasn't he been in Boston for many years now for running his agency? Yeah.
I'm not saying he has a Boston accent. It was just, but yeah, he's been in Boston.
Yeah. Well, wasn't that the thing with Gordon? Isn't Gordon also from that area? And you can very much tell you can very much tell for his accent.
Oh yeah. Where else could we go here, lads? Well, we mentioned it each of us a few times. Like Gordon's original press conference, he was mentioning stuff, a skilled, fast team, possession, again, big thing in analytics. Which I every time I heard analytics, I'm like, he's smiling more and more right now. I can just tell. Something else I thought finding very, very interesting was this is a line that I popped when I heard this. Hughes, and this is a French translation, so excuse me if it's a bit off, but saying that if a player isn't performing well, they want to figure out why that's the case. When it feels like in the past, if somebody has faltered, instead of helping a player up, they've just sort of let themselves get up, if you know what I mean. KK's not playing well. We're not going to explain much to him, but send him to Laval for a week or two, and look how that turned out. Feels like there was never much communication with Alex Galchenyuk. Look how that ended up. It just, I thought that was refreshing to hear. You know what? Character is a term that I think in the city of Montreal, especially in the hockey side, it's almost a meme at this point. But when I heard Kent Hughes mention character, I felt like it really meant something. And the term, I think, what it means to, what is it going to mean to be a Montreal Canadian? We know what it is to be a Boston Bruin. We know what it is to be, an old-fashioned sort of, we knew what the Habs were back in their heyday. Now it's the 70s, and that's a long time ago, the Flying Frenchman. We knew about that. But what's been lost nowadays, sorry?
We did watch it at the time.
So, of course, Daniel, you just had your first son. But it's what does it mean to be a Montreal Canadian? And when they mention culture in that's what you have to establish. You can't have, and also in the press conference, he's mentioned, apparently he talked to Bill Garrett, and Bill Garrett had mentioned, there's the Cowboys, there's the Yankees, and the Montreal Canadiens. That hit a chord with me because it's like this franchise that I have sold out to so easily should have an identity to it. And it shouldn't be bottom six grinder with undescribed character. It was when I tweeted that they've restored my faith. Like, I mean it. It's so weird to think, but I believe in this team again. I don't want to get hurt again, Patrick, but I believe.
Go ahead,
Patrick. Oh, no, sorry. I was just going to say a small joke. I'm like, so we're not going to expect a Michael McCarron or Nikita Sherbak type of draft pick anytime soon in the first round, at least.
Yeah.
There's a lot of reasons to be optimistic, and I don't want to come across as negative because the press conference from Gordon a couple months ago, press conference today was really good. I really want to see how they handle the deadline, and I'm confident in how they handle the deadline. But I don't want them afraid to make certain moves. But so far, I have no reason to have my doubts because you have a extremely experienced and competent general manager who can handle the negotiations, and you have Jeff Gordon, who's been in the biggest markets, Boston, New York, and now Montreal. And they do need an identity, and it's nice to finally have one. And you touched on character, and I don't want to spend the episode ripping Bergevin, but his talk about character was not really reflected in his signings and his player acquisitions, the reported interest in Slava Voinov, the interest in Tony DeAngelo, drafting Logan Mailloux. I should have said that first, honestly. Character, I don't think meant as much as he wanted people to believe. And I think there's a legitimate identity, and hopefully, when they had 24CH back in, I don't know if you guys watched that show, but that
was so good.
Great show. I wish they kept it going. When they had that back, they started that around the time that Therrien was hired, and he was talking about team identity, and it was this tough team, which I think obviously you need to be tough to an extent, but he was saying how they were being fancy, and he was citing cycling the puck in the offensive zone and skating around as being fancy. He said, you need to be north-south quick, dump the puck, chase, throw it on net, get the rebound, hopefully someone's there. And he's yelling at them. He's saying, we're a grinding team. This is what we do. You had Alex Galchenyuk a year after being drafted on that team. And it touched on, how they don't communicate necessarily with their young players. If Dale Weiss or David Desharnais are having a hard time, they're going to get power play one time and they're going to get first line minutes. If it's Alex Galchenyuk, Jesperi Kotkaniemi, who whiffed on a shot or turned the puck over, I'll say Cole Caulfield, and maybe we can get into that discussion because he's been pretty frustrating. It's demote him, take him off the power play, bench him, call him out, send him down. And I think talking about solving the problems with players who are struggling, specifically young players, because this is a team that we hope is going to get younger, that we hope is going to get more skilled. You want personnel in place who will get them to that next level and not bench them after turning the puck over when a veteran, a more experienced veteran who shouldn't turn the puck over would make the same play, but still get out there the next shift.
So on that note, we won't talk about Dom Ducharme because sorry if you can hear the dogs, unless the mic, it's still working. Thank goodness. Okay. Because it doesn't look like if Ducharme's back next year, I don't know. I'll jump into the river.
He slipped up. He slipped up today. He mentioned at the end when he talked about Barry Trotz, he subtly said, well, to choose a coach, and everyone freaked out and said, oh, that means Ducharme's gone 100%. So I think he might have let one slip there a little bit. I do think he's gone though, for sure.
When he's like, I'm anxious to talk to him, like, boy, I would love to be in that room.
Yeah.
I tweeted the other day that it's incredibly frustrating that Dom Ducharme seems to have more trust in Rhett Pitlick, who's been here for a week, than in Cole. And I swear, now that Toffoli's back, the moment Cole's healthy, and I think they were saying that by the end of February, or a time in February, the taxi squads are going to be gone. I am terrified that he's going to get sent back down. Do you want to talk about Cole then? Because elephant in the room, he has one goal. I think Brett Pitlick in his time as a Hab has as many goals. But yeah, if you want, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, this might be a semi-hot take, or I don't know how it's going to get received, but I honestly think they should consider sending him down. And really? This is kind of, just because I've had the view for the longest time, and I still have that. And I think the main reason he's struggling is Dom Ducharme. It is his deployment. It's his ice time. It's the way the power play works. It's the way he's being used. It's having no patience with him. Him in the bumper, I don't get that. The fact that Jeff Petrie and Ben Sherratt, they take shots at, penalty killer shin pad instead of looking at a wide open Cole Caulfield. I can go on about why he's struggling, but at the same time, and someone put out a poll on Twitter that said, who's been the most disappointing Hab? Petrie, I forget who else was listed, Anderson, Gallagher, but Caulfield wasn't listed. I said Petrie was the most disappointing, but Caulfield's right after him, because even though you're struggling because of your head coach, when you're that good of a prospect, you still have to break through it. And I was kind of expecting, since we last recorded, that eventually he'd kind of get going. He'd have a little bit more jump in his step. There's not a lot of energy there. Honestly, I think his body language is a little bit off. And I think when you're that elite of a prospect, because he is an elite prospect, and I guess we're getting past the point where we can call him a prospect anymore. When you're that talented a player, you have to show something despite being on the fourth line, despite being taken off the power play. And I'm kind of expecting, or I was expecting him to do that. And honestly, maybe a couple games in Laval might be good, but at the same time, you don't have a skilled center to play with in Laval, but you're also not giving him a skilled center to play with in the NHL, sticking him with Pezzetta on the fourth line. So, 8 points, 29 games. I know it's a bad team. I know everyone's injured, but maybe a conditioning stint, maybe just getting him a little more minutes down there. As much as it sucks to admit, because I had him winning the Calder, and I know a lot of people did, and he came off that hot playoff, but it's a significant drop off. But this isn't the player Cole Caulfield is either. We saw what he did in the playoffs. We saw him, terrorize Robin Lehner and the Golden Knights. We saw him against Winnipeg. He was all over the place. Even the Stanley Cup final game, he had end-to-end rushes and rang them off the pipe. Like he's a talented player, but maybe just a change of scenery for a little bit might benefit him.
He's a guy that, at his best, he's got great hockey sense. He's got an underrated playmaking ability. And there's been no explosiveness lately, especially maybe the beginning of the year. Even me, and I'm a huge homer for Cole, and much as you, I hate Dom. At some point, it's like, man, I just need you to put a puck in the net. Even though it took way too long for them. Right before Hoffman went down, they finally set the power play up the way they should have. They had Paling in front, Suzuki in the bumper, and then Hoffman and Caulfield on either flanks. Then Sherratt was QBing it, because who else did you have? Okay, to finish off then, Patrick, since we have you, and I think we're still kind of planning closer to the deadline, we have you on again. I'm just going to read some names, and I want you to tell me if at the deadline, day after, will they be Canadians or not? Okay. Some of them you're going to expect, maybe some, who knows? I'm just going to ask players who I think probably have real value here. Jonathan Drouin.
I think he'll be a Canadian after the deadline. I think if you move him, it's an off-season move, but I think he'll stay past the deadline. Too big of a contract, and he's been too disappointing, I think.
Fair enough. Mike Hoffman.
I think that's next deadline.
Okay. I know your favorite player, Christian Dvorak.
He will be a Hab.
Yeah. He said he wants to be a part of the future. I don't believe it. Tyler Toffoli.
I don't think he's guaranteed, but he's not at the top of my trade list, but I think he's definitely in the top 3 to 5 players that could be moved, and he's healthy. A couple points last night. I think I don't want to say 50-50. I think he could get traded. Yeah. I'll
You know who could use Tyler Toffoli?
Calgary?
The Vancouver Canucks.
Thank you for Canucks as well. Yeah, that's right.
Prospect in a second.
Game on the Habs.
Sorry.
The first game of the season I didn't watch, they score 5 against Dallas. Who do you think you are? So mad about that. First time I play Halo instead of watching the game, and they disappoint me. I sit down and watch them play the Coyotes and lose. And, Anyway, remember Kent Hughes. We like him. Who else do we? Arturi Lehkonen. Our dear sweet boy, Arturi Lehkonen.
I started writing an article on Lehkonen. I'm a big fan, as you guys have seen my Twitter. But he's someone that I think can get a lot at the deadline. I don't know how into analytics you guys are, but Evolving Hockey, they have him as a top 5 Selke candidate because he's having a career year on a god-awful team. And you can see the charts where it's broken up into good offense, good defense, good offense, no defense. He is peaking where everyone else on the Habs is just at the worst play possible. I think he can get a decent return. I think the Rangers are a team that could really be interested in him and value him. I also think a team like Colorado or a team like Dallas, where they can round out their middle six a little bit better. He's a player who helps you win games. He is so infuriating. I get why people don't like him. He whiffs on the puck. He shoots it 10 feet over the net every single time, but it's better to have 10 shots going over the opposing net than allowing 5 high danger scoring chances. So he's someone that I think can get you something at the deadline. You definitely entertain it. But if you are rebuilding, which I think at this point, a lot of people think they are, you need to keep some players. Rebuilding doesn't mean you purge everyone who's under the age of 28. And Lehkonen's 26, I believe. You still need, is he 26?
Yeah, he's 26.
You still need some players who you want to keep for a rebuild. And that doesn't mean that everyone who's old is gone. Toronto added Marleau when they started their rebuild, when he was past his prime and he still did well. I'm not comparing the two, obviously, but long-winded way of answering your question. Yes, I think they entertain trading him, but that's really tough because he's an RFA as well. No, I think he gets traded. But I think it's a good return.
And I think you guys talked about it last episode when I wasn't here, fellas. I think it was Arthur Staple said that the Rangers are interested in him. I know Freeman was saying that if there's a trade rumor, talk about Florida, Carolina, and Colorado. Mention Tulski. If I can just think they would love a guy like Lehkonen. Anyway, he's the king of generating chances, but can't score. My man. Even though he scored the biggest goal of our Habs fandom.
He's a playoff guy. He shows up every playoffs. That
2017 series versus the Rangers, he was good. Jeff Petrie.
He'll stay a Hab. But I also think, sorry, and I'm going to ramble on a little bit here. I think guys like Petrie and Armia who are having bad seasons, when GMs look at those guys, they're not looking at the 42 games Montreal has played and saying that's who Jeff Petrie is, that's who Yoel Armia is. They're going to look at their careers. They're going to look that Jeff Petrie was in Norris conversations last year. They're going to look at Armia's playoff numbers, for example. They're going to look at overall how their careers are and how they can help that team. Jeff Petrie is not a 3-point guy in 40-something games. It's not him. This is not Armia either. So I think a lot of people get so caught up in the seasons they're having now, but context matters too. But I still think Jeff Petrie remains a Hab, and I think that's someone you look to trade in the next offseason or the offseason after that, because there's not too much term on his deal. It's not that bad. And he wants to win. And I also think part of the reason he's struggling is he signed that deal thinking they would be contending, and they're not. And I don't think he's having a good time. I don't think he's injured. I just don't think he's valuing his play right now.
It's 3 years after this, right?
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
He's 33 now, right?
34.
Yeah.
34. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, but his skating's not going to just disappear or anything, right? This is probably the easiest one on the list. Big Ben, put some respect on his name. Big Ben Sherratt. Patrick is waiting for those of you who can't. See
you later. Yeah, he's gone. If he's not, then we're gonna have to redo this podcast and say that everything positive about Kent Hughes and Jeff Gordon is just wrong.
If this podcast is going to blow up, it's going to be from that.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I thought for the longest time when Edmonton was, at the top of the division, that it was just a foregone conclusion that Ken Holland would trade a first for Ben Sherratt, get that big defenseman. And it would be peak Ken Holland to do that. They're second last in their division right now. And I don't think they're going to make the playoffs at all. And Ken Holland said that they're not going to trade a first. Obviously that can change, but I think Ben Sherratt either gets you a good prospect or he gets you a first-round pick, not because he's worth it, but because that's what GMs do. And I think that might be Florida.
So I saw this tweet, a couple hours ago, but it was linking, it was talking about the Kings, and the tweet is Chikrin would be nice.
Oh,
but I think
you,
Ben,
Alex,
but I think Ben Sherratt from Montreal is the name to watch for LA.
Would you say forget the Deneau effect? It's
Bergevin no longer effect? The Deneau effect. It is now the Bergevin effect.
Patrick, do you want to replace Alex on the show full time?
Well, honestly, I think Sherratt to one of those teams. I think Florida. But if Florida does it, I think Bill Zito's an excellent GM, and I'm going to not think he's an excellent GM the second he trades for Sherratt. And it'd also be a huge middle finger to Florida fans because if they're interested in Chikrin, going from Chikrin to Sherratt would be something. But Sherratt is gone for sure. I think if I were to rank the likelihood of getting traded, Sherratt, I think he's guaranteed to be gone. Mm-hmm. I think you'll unload guys, or Hughes will unload guys like Paquette, Perreault if he's healthy, just Weidman, for example, for like a seventh, the same way Gustafson, power play guy can get you someone. Sherratt for sure, and then I think Lehkonen's a solid maybe.
Two more names here. Just bit my lip, not hurt. This is a guy I think you can value get at the deadline. Our favorite defenseman, it's Brett Kulak.
Yeah, I think he would be, honestly, I'll put money on Colorado trading for him at the deadline because Joe Sakic is smart and he would fit perfectly in their bottom four. If someone gets injured, he can step up easily. I've been vocal that I think he's not a first pair defenseman, but he is a top four puck mover. And I think he's honestly someone that Edmonton could use. And if Ken Holland was really smart, he would trade a third or a fourth for Kulak and not a first for Sherratt because Kulak's also from Alberta. If Edmonton was in the running, but yeah, I think Kulak could get traded. Absolutely, I think teams value him. Smart teams would value him. I think Colorado especially would look at Kulak. Florida could look at Kulak, and he wouldn't cost a first that Ben Sherratt, who isn't as good as Kulak in my opinion, would get.
And finally, this is probably another easy one, especially with the news of his rehab is just restarting. Carey Price.
No, but wouldn't it be cool? Not cool, but wouldn't it be something if you got traded?
Patrick, I'll remind you, the moment I get some money, I'm tattooing his mask on my leg. My favorite player of all time. It would not be cool. I would cry. I would understand it. I'd cry again. I'd come on the show. I'd cry again.
It'd be a hell of a summer.
It would be, it screams a draft move, doesn't it? If it's going to happen, but deadline, probably not.
Imagine. No, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay. No, I was just going to say, imagine McDavid, Draisaitl, and Carey Price moving all in the same summer.
They'd accuse him of being too pissy about it.
No, I don't know. I think honestly, before when people were debating what media is the worst, Montreal or Toronto, but is it Vancouver fans? It's at this point, it's Canadian media.
Yeah.
It's Canadian media as a whole has just been brutal. Montreal, it's the language issue. Toronto media is pretty hard on its players. Edmonton, there's, just a lot of rumors. Vancouver, there's rumors. Calgary seems somewhat okay, actually. Calgary's sort of neutral, but Canadian media in general. But as far as Price goes, as much as it would suck to see him get traded, you have to think, if they're going to rebuild, he should not have to go. He's gone through so much since being in Montreal.
Yep.
He wants to win, and it wouldn't be ending. That's why there were so many Price to Colorado proposals. At the same time, it's do you want to trade another goalie to Colorado after the Wash trade? You got to make sure you nail it. But no, I don't think he'll get traded. But I do. Maybe Allen can get traded.
That's a name I should. Yeah, Allen. I was screaming Allen if you're Edmonton. But I don't know, because if you're Montreal, maybe because of the low cap hit, you can charge an arm and a leg. But this is now because they're worried about they're looking at what was some of the names they were speculating about, like Husso, Varlamov. Anyway, discussion for another day. I think that's everything. Yeah, no, the right thing is it would be nice if here's what I'm worried about is if he comes back and he plays. I want the last games Carey Price played to be those playoffs for this team. I don't want to see him come back and play for this team. I like you say, he's put his body on the line for this team. I can't imagine the condition of his knees. But anyway, all right. Well, sorry, go ahead.
I was messing around on Cap Friendly. I had a couple mock trades if you guys want I had Weidman going to Minnesota for like a 6th or a 7th. Minnesota's in the playoff run, get someone to help out with power play. I had Ben Sherratt going to Edmonton for a 1st because I think that Edmonton figured it out. Montreal retains 50. He's a top 4, big body, all that stuff. I had Lehkonen going for Kravtsov in a 2nd. But I don't know if that, just because that's what Twitter's been saying. Twitter's been obsessed with Kravtsov and Lehkonen. And then Paquette to anywhere for future considerations.
Or we will pay you to take him.
Yeah, we will pay you, and I get $5 million against the cap just to take this guy. No, but
I didn't know this until I was looking at their clients. I didn't know that Emily Castonguay represented Cedric Paquette. I was like, imagine if they hire her and they don't bring him back. I'd be like, really hope they hire her, by the way. I haven't shut up about that. I really want her to get hired. Okay. Well, Patrick, thank you for coming on as always. Go ahead and plug your stuff again.
Oh, of course. Just Twitter, really. Patrick E. Tallon. I have an article coming out hopefully in the next couple of weeks for A Winning Habit under Fansided. Yeah, keeping busy with school.
Of course. It's heating up. Yes, okay, we'll be back in a second. What are we going to talk about? Some stuff from 32 Thoughts, some PHF news. Montreal's getting the team. Let's go. We're going to talk about the Panthers being nasty and scoring all the goals in the world until they ran into Calgary. The last man in stuff, Kadri finally got in, but Barkov's not going, and it's a joke. And Leon Draisaitl being pissy, of course. All that in a second. Lads.
Adam.
We're here.
Still here.
Hello.
Woo! How are you guys?
Compared to 45 minutes ago, pretty good.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Well, I guess you've woken up from class, right?
Yeah.
It's tiring, these man, like everything just piling up for all of us, these evening conversations.
I mean, it's really tough like shoveling outside with like an 8-year-old's shovel, but like that's besides the point.
Oh, hey, Doug.
Sorry. I had to do it.
That's fine. Okay. Got some stuff to talk about here. First off, can I just say, because I wasn't here last week, I cannot tell you how happy I am that the shootout skill competition is coming back. That's that and Art of Shot are my favorite things ever. Like, thank goodness it's coming back. So happy.
Yeah, I'm surprised it took this long. But again, I'm also not surprised because it's the NHL.
Yeah.
Adam, we mentioned it. Sorry, go on.
No, go ahead.
We did mention it last episode, our favorite memories of the breakaway. So we'd like to know which one is yours.
Alex did have mine. Carey Price making a save backwards.
Okay.
That and when Ryan Kessler's son was there and Carey let him score on him was pretty good. That when I think it was the one in Columbus. I think Ryan Johansson, remember that when he was a Blue Jacket, and he had like I think it was the jersey or something, and like him and Goudreau doing a thing when it was like Goudreau was like a rookie and all that.
Yes,
and
yes.
It's like why is he's like a child? It was the whole thing.
Johnny Goudreau, now Bart.
Johnny. Yeah. I just really liked it. It was the most creative event by far. I was so mad when it left. That was the last time I fully watched an All-Star weekend when they did that. Bring the draft back too.
Yeah.
Phil Kessel getting
let him get drunk. Just let them get drunk. It's okay. They'll survive.
I know about that. But just, so the last men in, we have the votes for each division. For the Pacific, it's Troy Terry. Fair enough. For the not the Pittsburgh Penguins, he plays for Pittsburgh. For the Metro, it is Jake Gensel. Fair enough. For the Atlantic, Alex Barkov's not going to the games, guys. This guy doesn't get in the Olympics, but Steven Stamkos is the last man in. I doubt he cares.
I don't think he cares.
Yeah. And finally, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say with those 2 cup rings.
Yeah, that's great. Cheating. And the team that the guy who should have made it in the first place, well, a few of them should have probably made it, but Nazem Kadri is the guy for the Central. Love to see it. He's pretty good. He's going to get so overpaid in the summer. It's going to be hilarious.
By the Pittsburgh Penguins. I'm riding that. I am riding that one till the summer.
Oh yeah. Did you guys see what Brad Marchand did today?
I did.
Did he tweet? I saw
he did.
He did. So Alan Walsh came back.
So clearly the Willie Reese ceremony, congrats on that, by the way, having his number retired, great stuff. Clearly that ceremony was so long that the Bruins must have needed another warm-up because they got canned 7-1. I think it was 4 or 5-1 by the end of the first period. It wasn't great. So anyway, the Carolina Hurricanes afterwards put it on Twitter saying L stands for Lamborghini. I didn't really understand that, to be honest with you.
So I don't know if you saw it. Someone asked Vincent Trocheck if he something about comparing his style to Brad Marchand, and Vincent Trocheck goes, "Are you? Am I a rat or something like that?" And then Brad Marchand, I guess, posted, and it was with comparing the two stats, and he's like comparing me to a Prius, or like comparing a Lamborghini to a Prius, or something like that.
So the Carolina Hurricanes in response to L is for Lamborghini. And then Marchand hits back and says, "You're still the reason we pay 20% in escrow."
Oh, that one burned. I don't know. That one was tough.
They are, reminder, one of the bottom teams when it comes to value, the Hurricanes.
I don't know if you saw Alan Walsh actually retweeted it.
Of course
he goes, "The reason you pay 20% escrow is a few high-profile NHL players involved in the NHLPA leadership colluded with the other treasonous rats to stab NHLPA chief Bob Goodenow in the back during the 2004-05 lockout, surrendering on a salary cap / escrow to Bettman / the owners." That's why.
Can you just let us have a bit of fun, Alan?
Oh, I love Alan Walsh sometimes.
That is definitely something from Mr. Walsh. He is always a character in the game, is he not?
Yes.
I wish I could have his I don't know, he's already in a tough job, right? Like, it's a very, very busy job.
Yeah.
Alan Walsh?
Yeah, and the time he takes for his opinions on his tweets, I'm like, they are really spot on or just really timely.
He has them in his drafts because he's just ready for any scenario to bash Gary Bettman.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Where else can we go here? Oh, this is probably the big one, to be honest with you. So a press conference, Leon Draisaitl got into with Jim Matheson. Jim Matheson, who I did not know was a member of the Hockey Hall of Fame. Apparently he is. Longtime reporter, a meme on Twitter. Agrees to be one of the best segments the SDP ever did. We're reading his tweets. I'll never forget them. Jim Matheson basically asked him, what do the Oilers need to do better? And Leon said everything in a very sort of dead sounding tone because his team sucks and he's a Rocky Richard Hart winner, and for obvious reason. And Jim Matheson just goes, "Why are you so pissy, Leon?" That's a quote. He called him pissy twice because Leon asked him what. Now, obviously, Leon said, "I'm just answering your question." Jim Matheson strikes back, "Not a very good answer." And it sparked a bit of a hoopla around. I'm going to read you guys. I'm going to read you guys two tweets here from Mark Spector and
my God, Mark Spector
and Michael Trakos.
Oh, even better.
Which one would you like first?
Mark Spector.
Here's a look at Leon Draisaitl delivering whatever the Oilers' message is in the media. Legit question. Immature, dismissive answer. That is not leadership. I will remind you that the legit question was, "Why are you so pissy?" A reporter, a Hockey Hall of Fame, he's probably an honored member because media, asked a player, "Why are you so pissy?" I don't recall him ever asking Wayne Gretzky that question, by the way. From Michael Trakos, not a good look. Jim Matheson is a pro's pro. You don't get into the Hockey Hall of Fame for nothing. I hope the next time Leon sees Matty, there's an apology coming out of his mouth.
So the Michael Trakos tweet, is that did he retweet the fake Jim Matheson account? Because I know Steve Simmons did.
I did not see that. Oh my gosh.
From what I see in this screenshot, he's quote tweeting the Tim and Friends video.
Okay.
So at least he's using Canadian media. Then again, I don't know.
So nice of him.
Sorry, when I first saw that, all of us went to J school.
Correct.
Yeah.
They don't tell us to talk to someone in a media scrum like that. Just move on. There's other questions.
Yeah, I think they're like, hey, you know what you don't do? Ask someone if they're pissy as a question.
I think, all of us were very early in our career, but for me, I just kind of felt unprofessional in a way that you would take a player's remarks personally.
Yeah.
Yeah. The thing, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was just going to say he sounded personally attacked by it.
Yeah. I think there's fault on both sides, a little bit on Leon, but very much more on Jim Matheson's part. Yes, okay, by answering everything, I get it, but I don't think that means you can call a player pissy. Like if you're in, I think what this group of people seem to be forgetting is if you are in Leon Draisaitl's situation, you're 2-14-2 in your last 16, and you just lost to the Ottawa Senators, who, despite what Pierre Dorion says, are not done their rebuild. And you have someone ask you, are you pissy? Or why are you pissy? How are you going to respond? I would not respond very nicely. I will tell you that right now. I would not respond nicely if someone said that to me in a press conference after a game.
And I think for me, like, I agree with that, Alex, that this whole thing we've been talking about with the Oilers these last few weeks, aside from the Evander Kane situation, is we know that there is a lot of tension there. The Mikko Koskinen comments, him speaking out about it, them saying that, we're not scoring, we're not finding anything there. And it is true. Like, what would you expect the guy to say to this? Like, he's not going to throw, like, that's what I have to commend Leon Draisaitl for. He didn't throw anyone under the bus.
He also wasn't, more like he was aggressive. There was a follow-up of, is it good for you to show your frustration on the ice? And Leon just laughed and said, yeah, it's great. Leon Draisaitl could have bitten back really hard. He could have made it worse. If he had done that, I think I would give a lot of crap to him, but he didn't. So here's the thing with Leon Draisaitl saying, oh boy, hold on. Let me just check something here, guys. The Oilers, they're bad. You want to quickly, if I screen share something, can you just quickly read it? It's what Elliot Friedman said.
Sure. This is from, I'm assuming, 32 Thoughts. Thought number 6, the Oilers are changing course on this issue because missing the playoffs is not an option and the frustration is boiling over. By changing course, I assume that means the goaltending. Scouting meetings are in California this week, so owner Daryl Cates can be heard firsthand. I don't get too riled up about the Jim Matheson, Leon Draisaitl skirmish. It happens, particularly when teams are losing. I've been on the receiving end, try to roll my eyes and move on. The added challenge now is with restricted access due to COVID, there's no opportunity for a media member and a player to privately sort things out, only adds to the disconnect. What I would be concerned about from an Oilers point of view is the open frustration from Connor McDavid, Draisaitl, Zach Kassian, and others. It's multiple people over multiple days. That's really bad. Only wins stop an avalanche of negativity.
So, going back a second.
Yeah.
Leon Draisaitl, was he wrong saying they need to do everything better?
No.
They don't have saves. No. They can't defend. That game against Ottawa, I think, was a 3-1 lead they blew. Scoring has been a mess. It doesn't help that Leon and Connor, I think, are shooting really, really low. Like, their shooting percentage is really bad right now.
Yeah.
And that's going to sort itself out. And when it does, it's going to be terrible for whoever they blow up against. Maybe it's Florida. Hey, Bob Gardner, I'm just trying to ruffle your feathers a bit there. But yeah, I mean, it's Daryl Cates' names being mentioned is not. You never want the owner involved, but no. You got to realize. I think it's important. What do I always say? Perspective. If you're Jim Matheson, what you need to do is put yourself in Leon Draisaitl's shoes. If you're about to ask him, why are you pissy? Listen, yeah, if it is in the locker room, I've seen a lot of reporters say like it would be hashed out and that. I believe that. It's just at the same time, they're two adults, and maybe soon they're gonna laugh about it once the Oilers can get some wins. Yeah, but it's just that. I thought it was unprofessional. I didn't like it, and it's just you expect better from a reporter of that sort of experience.
Yeah, can I just add a point? Mark Spector's tweet you brought up there talks about leadership. I'm just very curious at where Duncan Keith is in all of this, because, remember when Duncan Keith came to Edmonton, Mark Spector and Gene Principe just, talked about Duncan Keith's leadership and how important it was. So where is he? And second, so I have 2 points. Second point, they keep asking all these players what the issue is, and they all get frustrated when they don't have an answer. It's, well, we got to do everything better, which is true. But when they had the opportunity to interview or talk to Ken Holland, the general manager, the man who constructed this team, when Ken Holland answered with, it is what it is, and this is, I believe in this team, we're not going to give up prospects or first round picks, there was no pushback. There was zero pushback to that. Why?
They apparently think it was on insider trading. I think one of you put on the doc. I think I actually got rid of it, so sorry. But apparently insider trading, they still believe in this team. No, absolutely not. Going to leadership, man, what more can Leon Draisaitl do? It's Leon Draisaitl. You don't go to an MVP and be like, no, how dare you? How dare you? This is the thing about, I hate repetition, right? I hate repeating. I hate it so much. Hence why I stopped listening to Hockey Central at noon and Leaf segments for the longest time on SDP. I was sick about hearing their defense. I was sick of it. If I'm a hockey player and you keep asking me, what's wrong here? What's wrong with this? What's wrong? You're expert. You should know. You can easily write about and tweet about this. Blah, 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 blah. I don't know if it was post game or something, but you could tell Leon was just dude, I don't know what Matheson was expecting. Especially, you can't push someone and then expect not to be pushed back. That's what. And I'm not mad at Spector or Tracos because that's them standing up for one of their guys. I understand that. It's so dumb, this whole thing. It's on freaking Holland.
You know what it reminds me of?
To see what?
When there's clearly someone is dealing something and then you ask, are you okay?
And they're just kind of there's a frustration of see, in the moment, it's like when you stub your toe, I'm like, I appreciate you asking me that, but at this very moment, I'm in so much pain where I don't want to speak to anyone right now. Mm-hmm. It's pissy.
The only thing I'd push back on about Leon Draisaitl, not necessarily with Jim Matheson, but I think Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid, I will say they are the captain and assistant captain of this team. And the fact that Brendan Perlini and Darnell Nurse have better answers and have much better press conferences than them in terms of I saw Brendan Perlini's press conference. He did not look, not that he didn't look mentally drained, but he gave a damn good answer. And you want that as a leader. That is the only thing I'll say, but I understand why Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl are not in that mood anymore, because it's been 5 or 6 years.
Perlini was like a rainbow. I will say, I will counter that saying Brendan Perlini does not have the pressure that Leon and Connor do, but then Nurse, we know, especially when that contract kicks in, that's fair. Perlini though, I don't want to rag on, be like, you're depth player, but he's not going to get the same attention. But I will say that press conference, I wanted to give him a hug. Perlini was such a breath of fresh air. I love that guy.
Yeah.
And again, they're looking at goalies still. Some of them have already been named. We mentioned them earlier, like Ville Husso. I think they were speculating on.
I don't know why. Sorry, I just I don't know. I don't know. I'm just thinking Ville Husso. Not dunking on the guy, but I'm just saying.
Well, first off, if you're St. Louis, why you don't have another goalie? This is the one I was looking at. I'm like, also they were speculating on it on the Jeff Merrick show today. Vinik Vanacek. If the Capitals trade Vinik Vanacek, I will lose it on both them and Seattle, by the way. And I don't know if Fucale has shown enough recently to be like, I'm good enough to be that. That's kind of weird. But Edmonton, can you please figure it out? Because at this point, I don't want the media pushing both Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid out of the sport. And I'm not excusing McDavid, especially that Evander Kane quote. Was not great. I don't remember if I was even on the show for that, but that was awful. I think I was, but whatever. Okay. Some news.
So, wait, just to confirm, the answer is not in the room.
God, no, it's not. It is not at all. The Panthers might be all in though, and apparently they might be in on Jacob Chikrin. If they do that, by the way, they lost against Calgary, but you do wonder if the Flames are going to score. I'm not the Flames. The Panthers aren't going to score 9 goals every game, and I think they're due for a bit of a cold stretch. It's unfortunate they're on a big road trip right now, and you don't want to play a Daryl Sutter team the first game of a road trip because they have some interesting opponents. Alex Baumgartner on 5 Reasons Sports, he did a little, he was on one of their shows. They broke down the road trip. You can talk about it, but they go Vancouver, which Pedersen's heating up. That's scary. They go up against Edmonton. Don't count out Leon and Connor. This is when they're going to be mad, pissy even. Winnipeg, who, what the hell are they right now? But they have Hellebuck. And then I think they finish against Seattle, which loud building, big defense, could be a bit of a grind for the Panthers. But anyway, they're looking very strong right now. If they had Jacob Chikrin to that team, Maron. Was it, but how do you say it? Maron?
Maron.
Maron.
What is that from?
Give him the cup. I don't know.
No,
him and Mike yell it all the time.
I think it's from The Sopranos, but it very much goes. It very much goes before I think The Sopranos.
Okay. Sorry, I just was really thrown off by Adam doing it. Okay.
32 thoughts. First off, number 14. Another UFA defenseman to watch for is Philadelphia's Rasmus Ristolainen. New team, still in trade talks. There was a time when this was heading in the direction of player testing the market. We will see if it changes. Poor guy.
Why would they consider, no offense, but why would you consider the option of re-signing him at this point? I know you gave up a first-round pick, but this wasn't the solution that you thought it was.
I was surprised because they trade Sean Gostisbehere for nothing.
And he's the better player?
For who's had the better season?
I don't know off the top of my head, but last time I checked, I'm pretty sure Gostisbehere was playing really well.
It was 14th overall they gave away, right? It was Isaac Rosen.
And I think they gave up another pick too.
Tough. Speaking of trades, there might be a bit of a problem here. Thought 16. The lack of cap space will be, this is obviously 32 thoughts, the blog from Elliot Friedman. Forgot to mention that. Pretty important. We talk about it every show. Figure it out. The lack of cap space will be the biggest impediment to making trades. So many teams are so tight or in long-term injury reserve. Arizona is using 2 of 3 retained salary slots, Darcy Kemper and Oliver Ekman-Larsson. The Coyotes can do one more. Other teams with cap space, Columbus, Buffalo, Detroit, Ottawa, could be kingmakers here.
Yeah, I personally, I feel like Arizona's kind of out of the mix on that one, just because I think once they trade Phil Kessel, no offense to Phil Kessel, I don't know what team who would acquire Phil Kessel would take Phil Kessel on at $6.8 million.
Yeah.
That's already half. I already know that's going to be half.
And you're obviously not going to retain on Chikrin because that deal is amazing.
It's already a steal.
It's beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Do you know where else we're going to go here, guys? Thought number 21, because there's actually a bit of an update to the All-Star game, and they're doing a good job, the NHL. I hate to say it. It's creativity from them, though. 21, one welcome change for this year's events that players not named to the game itself will be able to complete in the skill event. Call it the Z-Grass rule. He's the type of confident, talented young player everyone rushes to promote, but circumstances lined up against him. Calgary wanted to put Jacob Markstrom to rest, and that sounds very weird. Wants Jake Markstrom to rest. Sorry, I made this sound very morbid. And he's been battling an injury, so the Pacific needs a goalie to pair with Thatcher Demko, with John Gibson makes a lot of sense for last man in. Makes a lot of sense, period. For last man in, the Ducks wanted deserving Troy Terry nominated. That punted Z-Grass until the league resuscitated the breakaway challenge, which he will be brought to Vegas to compete in. It's a great idea, and he also sort of goes on a little later about talking about Zdeno Chara coming in for maybe hardest shot. How cool! I wish Shea Weber had 2 good legs right now so they could go head-to-head. But they're doing it. I might watch it this year. That's so nice.
Exactly.
This is surprising. Oh my gosh. Positive news about the All-Star game.
Oh, look at you, NHL doing you. Wow. Hey, Gary Bettman, could you answer Rick Westhead's questions instead of running away from him, though?
And I'll fix the jerseys.
They're plain. They're fine. They're not great, but they're fine.
It's not so NHL, though.
I'd like to say that, this There's so many big themes going on, a lot of trends going on of people wanting the 90s, early 2000s things. Like the NHL could have brought back the purple and teal jerseys.
Fair enough. I didn't hate the Columbus ones or like the green ones. I thought those were pretty red, bro. Anyway, thought 30. The PHF announced a board of governor investment of $25 million. Basically, what's going to happen with them is it's $25 million in direct payments to its players over the next 3 years, with the salary cap increase to $750,000 per team. I think that averages to salaries around $37,000, which compared to what I think it used to be is great. Not perfect, but the league are getting there. With that, they are also expanding to 2 franchises, an unnamed American City and the home of hockey, Montreal. That's sick.
Yeah, it's really smart to go, especially in Canada, where sometimes, like, my personal belief is if you're starting a new league, you don't necessarily go into the bigger markets. I mean, you saw that with the Canadian Premier League and the Canadian Elite Basketball League. But with professional women's hockey, I think because you're starting with pretty much nothing, getting into those bigger markets actually will be beneficial to you, because you get to, in a way, you can also work with the men's professional team that's already in there.
And we'll finish off here talking about the Leafs. I don't know how Jake Muzzin just continues to have a bad year. Not to his fault, but since the playoffs, that man just seems to have been dealing with injuries over injuries, Alex.
Yeah, he has not had the best of seasons, and now he's out with the concussion. I just don't know what's wrong. Like I'm watching him play, and I'm like, I don't know if it's an injury, but it's been months and it's been like this, and it is a little concerning. But I don't think it's fair for a single person to say them extending Jake Muzzin was a bad move. I think that's 100% hindsight. And yeah. I think it's unfair to do. I think the majority of people were very much saying extend Jake Muzzin. He is the Leafs' best defenseman, like, who plays defense.
All around, yeah.
As much as, like, we've mentioned with a Jeff Petrie sample this year, I don't want to look back on just this season and say, this is Jake Muzzin. I think right. I agree perfectly with what you said, Alex, where he was brought in to be that defensive defenseman guy, something that the Leafs haven't had in so long. And he performed. Like, I think Jonas Siegel put that when he was on the ice and he was playing the games, the Leafs were expected 18 more wins projected. And this year, I don't know, like, he also mentioned in that Athletic article that we don't know what it is. Is it he's overcompensating for Justin Hall? Is it just, he doesn't really have a permanent partner right now? But it is, again, like, the injuries, and he is turning 33, and we know how sometimes, like, those rough and tough kind of guys get. And I think to get this point, the way he's been playing still, I still think he's extremely valuable. Because if the one example I use is Josh Manson, as much as I love the guy, the amount of injuries that guy's had before 28 and 29, it's already showing in his game.
Again, Muzzin's the victim of, I was on a really, really good team. I played a really big role there. And, but once he gets to the playoffs, that sort of experience will make a big difference. Right now, because of that injury and that, the second pairing for Toronto is currently Timothy Liljegren and Rasmus Sandin. Young guys that you want to see what their role is on the next man up mentality, because obviously once the playoffs happen, injuries are going to hit. I don't need to pick on Muzzin, but obviously there's been a few playoffs where he's been out, and you need to fill that gap. Along with that is you get a really good sense of how they can play here, and maybe that affects the deadline, because also in 32 Thoughts, number 11, Toronto isn't against clearing space to prepare for a deadline ad. And maybe that as defenseman, I know we sort of spitball, maybe not John Klingberg. I know you're against another gentleman by the name of Big Benjamin Sherratt. But this is a good sort of test for Toronto in the right time, especially with how locked the East is in the playoff race right now. We basically know who are making this. So it's a pretty smart, not convenient because you don't want guys hurt, but a really good opportunity for some of those young guys in Toronto.
Yeah, it's just unfortunate that it comes up against the Rangers, who are a very good team.
And have a fan who was waiting to rip you about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, whatever. I don't care. Whatever. No, but I think we've seen it with Rasmus Sandin a little bit. And again, he's going to have to prove that again tonight and over the next few games as a second pairing defenseman.
Yeah.
But I think what will be the biggest test of them all is Timothy Liljegren.
Yeah.
Who has, surprised many this year in terms of being able to stay up, because that's kind of been his thing the last few years, where he's been given some games but never stuck in the lineup. But this year he has. So again, he has to prove that he can also take those next steps. He's like, 22 years old. He's not an old guy. He's still quite young, and there is room for improvement for Timothy Liljegren and Rasmus Sandin. But again, my personal opinion, tonight's biggest test is for Timothy Liljegren.
Yeah, I'm excited.
April will be 23, by the way.
He'll be 23. Okay.
I'm excited. Like, I think the biggest thing with Timothy Liljegren was whether or not he could be exposed to these types of big games, or he could be given the minutes he's had. Like Rasmus Sandin's, I think he's been through it already. So I think it's time for the Leafs to really see, like, okay, what do we really have with these two guys, and what can we see in terms of a ceiling here? And I don't think you're going to get that unless you actually give them the minutes.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes.
Are people bullying Steve Dangle?
Yeah.
I missed this. What's been going on?
Well, obviously they blew a few leads in the last 4 games.
He's
Didn't
to blame.
they blow like a lead in every game on that road trip?
Except Arizona.
Yeah. Oh, which they
lost.
Thank you for winning that game, by the way. It really helps Montreal get to the last. I appreciate
No problem. I think here's the thing is there's these really divisive extremes. Yeah, that word. Whatever Daniel said. So divisive. It sets of fan bases within the Leafs fan base where it's like just pure extremes. Like for absolutely no reason. Like there's one who's like, yeah, this is a good team and they'll win the cup. And then there's like the other end with like Steve Simmons and Michael Tracos. And it's like, no, this team is horrible and whatever. And I think Steve's very much in the middle of it, as am I. Like my opinions, I mean, like you have to look at it realistically. This team in the last 4 years have not won a playoff round or a qualifying round. This team has blown multiple leads over the last, I don't know, day one of Mike Babcock. Like it's just, I'm not going to get as mad as Steve, but that's Steve's thing, man. Like I'm not going to blame him for it. That's Steve's thing. And I think he would admit that himself, but look at this team realistically and say, they've shown signs of what they were in the past, and that has to be concerning for everyone.
Maybe that sounds better. No one wants the Leafs to win more than Steve Dangle. Yeah. He's just a realist. I mean, listen,
so mean to him.
Listen, here's the thing with Toronto. They're a good team. It's just, they're growing still. Like, here's the thing. Matthews and Marner may never get better offensively, and that's not an insult because one of them is the next greatest goal scorer in the league. Pretty good. And Mitch Marner is Mitch Marner, who you can probably trade. I should have just said Mitch Marner. I should have not mentioned him and just said Nylander. I messed up my bit there. They have Nylander and Matthew, and then Mitch Marner. He'll be traded for something. I don't know. But it's just like those guys still have to learn the completion of their game. And listen, like Matthews defensively is almost a different player than he was 2 years ago. It's very, I'm not saying he's a Selke candidate, like some people are saying, no, but by low key, who's having analytically an amazing defensive year? Bergeron again, might win the Selke. The 1 year I said he wasn't going to do it, bastard. But like Steve is just, can't find a nicer guy. No, we've met him a few times.
Yeah.
Super nice.
Gave me free Marlies tickets.
Wait, what?
Because I remember he did it was a while ago. It was like when he was doing a contest. Like if you retweet something,
okay,
you'll get DM'd like your tickets or something. And it was before he was super popular. Like he didn't work at Sportsnet yet.
Is this recent? You could have asked him to come on the pod.
No, this was a while ago. And it was great because, usually you don't see the people at their own giveaways, but he was there with Adam Wilde and Jesse Blake.
I can't believe Wilde isn't his real last name.
You
I
didn't
don't know
know
if I've
that?
mentioned this. No, which is I'm an idiot for that. But I don't know because obviously I know it's Steve Dangle Flynn. And then when people reminded me he works in the radio station, he's a DJ, I'm like,
Yeah.
oh yeah.
So it's funny.
Son of
because,
Marilyn Dennis.
Yeah. So I was gonna bring that up. It's funny because I didn't realize I first started watching SDP before I knew who Adam Wilde was. And I didn't know at the time he was Marilyn Dennis's son. And I just happened to be watching it in front, and my mom was around, and my mom watched and still watches sometimes Marilyn Dennis. And she goes, "Isn't that Marilyn Dennis's son?" I'm like, "What?" Like it was just utter shock because you wouldn't have I wouldn't have clued in on it before.
I don't think she has his cackle laugh that he has.
So it's Adam Dennis?
No, I don't see. I was watching Game Over, and Julian and Julian was on with it's Berkshire, Andrew Berkshire show, but Julian McKenzie was on it, and they were talking about it, and then they were like, "Oh, Adam doesn't want us to talk about it," and people in the chat were mentioning it, and I did some digging and I found it. I'm not going to say it, even though I assume it's pretty easy to find, but I don't think it's Dennis because I think his parents are divorced, so I think Dennis might be your maiden name. Let's end the show now.
Is it Adam Wilde with an I?
It's WYLDEEE. I missed that old intro.
I know.
It didn't have Jesse Blake. I like at the end where Jesse would edit Jesse Blake. Bad GM though. Noted bad GM.
Yeah, horrible.
They're not listening to this, but if they are, I love you, Jesse.
We love you. We love when you ask for questions. We love it.
You may be able to tell, but we mention your show every episode.
Oh yeah.
You're decent.
Please mention us every episode.
Yeah, that they don't know who we are, but
we'll try. Okay, next time we repost something, you're like, "Hey guys, we mentioned you here. Please also mention us." Big fans.
It's funny. They just hired like a social media person, another producer.
Yeah.
I've always believed that when the moment they are at a certain point, Adam Wilde's going to leave. Whatever. I think is it Virgin he's at, or is it Kiss, or he used to be at Kiss. I'm convinced that his heart is with the STP. Anyway, with that, that's everything. Thank you to Patrick. Go check out his stuff. Did he mention his Twitter user? Did he mention his handle?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
I'll put it's in the description. It's okay. If you're listening to this, you will find it.
We'll see you Sunday. It won't be as Habs heavy because we're not going to talk about that. They continue to lose games and the GM is done. So probably won't have a Habs heavy show for a while. They're sure going to be mentioned because we care about two teams. But if you're listening for the Leafs, there will be much more Leafs content. They also haven't played since last episode, I don't think. So it's hard to talk about a team that doesn't play.
It is.
But they're getting there, gradually getting there.
Yeah.
And we're not in the business of making up rumors.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Not yet until we're insiders.
Indeed. Okay. We will see you later. Goodbye.